Okay, I'm here with Wallace J. Nichols, or Jay as we call him, as he likes to be called. Is a marine biologist, water lover, turtle nerd, embarrassing dad, and creator of useful words. He is the originator of Blue Mind and wrote the New York Times bestselling book Blue Mind, which we have signed copies of in our online store. He's also the co-founder and former board member of Sea Turtles, and the whole concept of this project was originally Jay's idea. So we wanted to have a little chat with him about that and his background and what he's doing now. So how's it going, Jay?
Good. If you don't know how to spell my name, I wrote it down for you right there. You go. Good to
We'll
see you,
send that
Brad.
out too to make sure everybody's clear. um, so you're a lifelong turtle nerd. um,
Totally.
how far back does your interest and love for turtles of all kinds go?
I think like a lot of kids, I loved mucking around in the creeks and flipping rocks over, and probably in retrospect, harassing wildlife a little bit because you're just curious and you're a kid and you just grabbing insects and catching frogs. But I always loved turtles for some reason. I just love their shape. I love thinking about them. And we used to catch snapping turtles in the Chesapeake Bay as kids. And when we caught them, we'd paint numbers on their shells and throw them back. And then sometimes you recapture a turtle and it had a number. And so I would do this simple math on trying to figure out how many basic algebra to try to figure out how many turtles were in the Chesapeake Bay. And I love math too. I love turtles and math. And that was like, it was play. I dreamt about it. I had like turtle equations in my dreams. And um, as far as science goes, it was really terrible. We didn't really figure out how many snapping turtles were in Chesapeake Bay because there's some serious methodology problems. But I literally dreamt about mark recapture research as a kid before I had any idea that people actually did that. We were just messing around, catching turtles and putting numbers on them and letting them go. And then like 10 years later, I find myself in graduate school doing mark recapture research on sea turtles in Mexico. So, it's pretty nice when your passion and your form of play as a kid turns into your job. And I think that's why you and I get along so well. Partly is it's like when we met, it was like, you just wanted to help people connect with turtles because it's awesome. And you wanted to, say, okay, let's take families to the best places to see turtles, where it helps the turtles, it helps the community, and it helps the family, feel better about their lives. And you turn that passion into, you're the world's expert on doing that, literally, like by far, and award winning. So I just love when people are able to find that thing that lights them up and that feels like play and turn it into, a job, without getting too heavy. Um, and so that's kind of, I think that's what we have in common. I love water. I love turtles, and I'm 53 years old and I'm doing work with water and turtles. So
So you're saying your Chesapeake Bay research never, no peer-reviewed published journals?
I don't even want to go back and try to redo it. I mean, it was fun. Let's leave it at that. It didn't get published though. No, you won't be able to read about it in any scientific journals.
Yeah. So one of the main things that you've done in your career working with sea turtles is working with the black turtle, the subspecies of green turtle that lives in the Eastern Pacific, primarily in Mexico. That story I think is one of the best in all of sea turtle conservation, with the work of you and dozens of organizations and thousands of people across Mexico. Can you talk a little bit about how you got into that work and how that recovery effort has been going?
Yeah, so when I started studying sea turtles in Mexico, the black sea turtle was critically endangered. In fact, everybody said it was too late. They were, you know, just not gonna make it. It wasn't worth the time. But a bunch of us, small group of Mexican colleagues and American colleagues, we decided to dig in and give it a shot, even if it was just futile, even if we were just riding, the conveyor belt to extinction. We weren't going to go out without a fight, and somewhat naively, I guess you could say. And but I think, um, looking back on it, that everybody had kind of given up, and that the funders weren't funding it, kind of gave us this opportunity to be a little more experimental. We were a little bit under the radar, and now the experimental approach that we took back then is considered the right way to do things. It's very mainstream. And what we did was, in addition to really world-class science research on migration and growth rates and what the turtles eat, and their genetics and all those kinds of things, we built the whole program as a community-based effort. So we never released a turtle with a satellite transmitter without the whole community out on the beach cheering, naming the turtle, tracking the turtles. Um, Sometimes the people who were putting the transmitters on the turtles were turtle poachers themselves, or turtle hunters is probably a better term than the word poacher. Um, but the men and women who were eating the sea turtles to extinction were also the ones involved in studying them, and their kids would come and join us. And it was very, I would call it, full immersion conservation science. And that was not a popular approach back then, because you were supposed to be unbiased and kind of distant and an outsider, and kind of stay away from the personal side of things. Um, but that doesn't work. That was my impression, was, really, as a problem solver, how do we make sure these animals don't go extinct? Well, science alone won't do it. Laws alone, there already were great laws on the books protecting turtles, but they didn't work. There's never going to be enough money for enforcement, ever. Like, just never going to be in the budget to spend millions of dollars on enforcing the turtle laws.
Mhm.
So the only approach that works is working with people, changing hearts and minds and understanding, getting a lot deeper into that aspect. And most scientists aren't prepared to do that. It's just, to be honest, and no fault to them. They went to graduate school and studied molecular genetics, not human behavior change. But then they find themselves in the behavior change business. Um, the molecular genetics is cool for a few scientific publications. It might give us some guidelines about what to prioritize, but conservation is all about behavior change. And so we took that part very seriously from the beginning. We built this very robust network of community leaders, small nonprofits, um, churches, pastors or priests, educators in the schools, business people, scientists, of course, politicians. Anybody who wanted to help make sure the black turtle didn't go extinct was invited, including the turtle hunters. And so, um, that approach worked. Well, it worked. I mean, there was skepticism for decades, but now it's pretty clear the black turtle is still around. And as you know, in visiting the beaches, the first time I went to the beaches in Michoacan to see them nest, you could walk and walk and walk and try to find a turtle. You would find one. And nowadays, you can take two steps and you trip over one. And
Mm.
it really has gone from hundreds of nesting females to, tens of thousands. And
Yeah.
in the past, several decades. And it isn't just because of scientists, it's because of this very um, robust network that's very inclusive. And it's kind of ridiculous to think that that was considered a new idea ever, uh, or unacceptable or unfundable. But it was. And now it's, nobody rolls their eyes when you say we need to involve the communities in our work. They say, of course. And that's exciting. And I think it is a little bit of an unsung success story, or at least it's emerging as one. Um, yeah.
So speaking of working with communities, the idea of this organization of sea turtles, SEE turtles, was your idea as a way to help local communities get involved with and benefit from sea turtle conservation. Where did you come up with that idea? What made you think that that would be that tourism could be a tool for conservation?
Yeah, I think, we'd seen over the years that um, when people visited a turtle beach, they they really enjoyed it. And if they left a few dollars behind, it was really helpful for the community, for the people working in turtle conservation, and also the turtles. Moved us towards our goals, and that could be done. That could be done well, or it could be done very poorly. And and so the idea, that when you and I founded Sea Turtles, was to take the best practices, really fine tune them, and figure out, there isn't one best practice for every beach, but to kind of look at that, to look at the places where there was some conservation urgency, and then to kind of build a portal that if somebody just went online and said, I want to see turtles, hence the name,
Mhm.
that we would be the first place they would go. If they said, type, I want to see turtles, they would, or I want to see sea turtles, they would come to seeturtles.org,
Mhm.
and we would help them. Um, and just if leaving that just to its own devices, you could have really weird situations where people mobbed beaches that would be poorly managed. They might leave a few bucks, but it might not really be good for the community, might not be a beautiful experience for the visitor, and could be bad for the turtles. And so we kind of wanted to get ahead of that and really shape it. And there was the concept of ecotourism and the leave no trace approach. And I think our idea was leave a big trace, leave a really powerful, really useful trace. Not a messy one, not a destructive one, but an optimistic, positive trace. You know, leave your dollars in the hands of people who were going to put them to good use, not the mega hotels. And um, so that really was the origin of the thinking, and the idea that we could build a network of like-minded organizations and travel companies, and then help projects promote their own work um, to a broader audience. And that was the theory. It's evolved, obviously, and like I said earlier, Brad, you stepped up and literally, through scholarship and through travel and hands-on experience, and just the great attitude that you have to learn and help, you stepped into that space and became the global guru for turtle travel. And I mean, and I think most people would have said, I didn't know we needed a global guru for turtle travel. uh, well, all the more powerful to kind of step in and say, yeah, you do, and it's me. But literally, you've written the book about it. You've spoken internationally, won awards for it, and whether it's direct or indirect, it's the overall result is people have learned a lot. Even if they don't run their work through sea turtles, they've been inspired by what we've tried to do, and learn from your keynotes, which are always nudging people forward and um, challenging people, to do what we do better, more efficiently. I just, I know I'm not here to just like be a giant cheerleader for you and for sea turtles, but I'm going to do that anyway. The there's a need for that work, and there's a need for somebody to um, efficiently do it and fearlessly. And because of the model that we use to fund our work, you're not beholden to any big funders. You can say what you need to say when you need to say it in the way that it should be said, and that turns out that's pretty rare in the world. And I value it a lot. Um, Whether people agree or disagree, it's really nice that there are leaders who aren't, they don't put the poll out and then decide what to say, or they don't check in with their funding source. They can say what's in their heart. And so that's kind of part of it too, is to be authentic and get stuff done without giant overhead.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I like the term sea turtle travel agent. I think that's a that's a pretty accurate one.
Well, it may not be what you thought you were doing, but I remember, just reminds me of a funny story. We were attending back in the day when all of our friends were getting married and stuff. We attended a bunch of weddings. Went to one, met some new people. They asked what you do, and it was a group of people who were mostly in technology and consulting. And then we went to another wedding, and there were a bunch of the same people were there, but it was in Texas. And this guy came up and he said, "I remember you. You're the turtle rancher." And it was the only way he could possibly understand why you would work with turtles would be that you must be a turtle rancher, because nobody in their right mind would try to just save them. That's not a job.
Yeah.
So then he was introducing me to his friends. He's like, "This guy's a turtle rancher. Tell him about it." And he turned to me and I'm like, "Well, I'm not really a turtle rancher." Not
Maybe
really the
turtle
term.
rodeo, but
Yeah, yeah, I do turtle rodeo sometimes, but I don't do ranching. Wrong terminology.
yeah. The work that you've been doing over the last few years is around a concept that you originated and named called Blue Mind. Can you talk about what that is, and how it's powerful for people, for your brain, for your health, and how people can incorporate this concept into their lives?
Yeah, so that's Blue Mind. That's my book. Um, if you're interested, you can find it for free if you Google hard enough. Um, or you can buy a signed copy from Sea Turtles on the website. But the basic idea is very intuitive. It's a very familiar concept, but I just put a name on it. Um, that feeling everybody gets when they're on a turtle beach releasing a baby turtle. That's Blue Mind. That's the feeling of connectedness and calmness, and you're not staring at your phone, you're not staring at a screen, you're not in traffic, you're not overstimulated. You're just in that really sweet spot where you feel like the best version of yourself, where you're serving a species that needs it. You're helping a community. You're with a group of cool people. You're outside under the stars, or listening to the surf, and all of it. It smells good, and it tastes good, and it feels right. Um, you're moving your body. You're in the water. You're near the water. Um, and I just wanted to understand that feeling as a scientist. And I went looking for this book. I wanted to read it. I wanted to study it. Then I wanted to apply it to our turtle work. And then when I went looking for the book, I couldn't find it because nobody had written it yet.
Yeah.
And then I tried to convince people that they should write it, and I failed. And then by default, I ended up writing it. 5 years later, got it published. And since then, I've been trying to share the concept with teachers and nurses and doctors and therapists and conservationists and anybody who will pay attention for 5 minutes. I'll gladly blab about it. Uh, but it basically is the idea that if you're in this thing we call red mind, which is the opposite of blue mind, where if you're distracted and stressed and anxious, um, which everybody is right now, by the way, uh, get to the water and just chill, sit in the water, paddle in the water. And you're a kayaker. If you're having a bad day, you get in the kayak, and the day is better. I'm not going to say it solves all your problems, but the day it puts things in perspective.
Absolutely.
If your brain is feeling fried and you feel like you're approaching burnout, if you go on a little turtle trip, you're going to avoid that burnout. I guarantee. Um, it's not, it doesn't fix everything. It doesn't solve everything. It doesn't solve our health, our serious health problems, of course. But we work with veterans and first responders and at-risk youth and people with a lot of anxiety. And it's just a tool for their toolbox. And the reality is, if we describe animals like sea turtles and our lakes and our oceans and our rivers and our forests as part of our health and wellness therapy, then we value turtles and oceans and lakes and rivers more. Um, and it changes the economic equation when uh, when a river is part of your um, your health and wellness toolkit. And we've left that part out for decades and decades, and I think um, we've miscommunicated the value of a healthy ocean as a result. But so we're fixing that. We're updating our talking points. We're updating the science so that we have a better story. Um, so you like say, okay, how does that connect back to sea turtles? Well, we used to say, if we've all given these talks. Why are we saving sea turtles? Because of their ecological value, and because of their economic value, and because of their educational value. So we know turtles are important to their ecosystem. They're a species like every other species. We know that their products were once prized and sold. We know that they bring tourist dollars in, and we know that they're a great educational example for kids. But there's a massive emotional value that we leave out. And I don't know why we leave it out, other than we just do. That's the way we were taught. Um, but it's at least 25% of the value of doing this work. And so when we leave it out, we are less successful. When we include it, it boosts our ability to connect more people to this idea that we should save sea turtles and their habitat and the ocean and the lakes and the rivers. So that's what Blue Mind is all about. It's about telling uh, a better story. And for as an environmental advocate yourself, we've tried fear and guilt for a long time, and scaring people and shaming them into action is not sustainable. And it never was. It was never going to work. You can scare people, they'll run 50 yards, but then they get tired. And then you go back over and scare them again, they might run 25 yards. If you scare them a third time, they'll run 10 yards. And then they'll say, I am tired of running. You keep scaring me and I can't run. If you shame them, you can shame them into action a little bit, but eventually you're going to shame them and they're going to leave. They're not going to talk to you anymore. And that's what we've done for decades. And no wonder we don't make more progress. So what if we used other tools like gratitude, it works, and love, and explaining that, taking care of the environment takes care of you. Taking care of the environment takes care of the people who serve us, our first responders, our healthcare professionals, our veterans. Taking care of the environment helps teachers stay resilient. that's a cool message, and it shifts the politics. Who doesn't want our teachers and first responders and nurses to be healthy and resilient? Um, if they can go out and paddle a little bit on the weekends on a healthy lake or river, or go for a swim, go for a walk in the forest, and come back and be better at healing sick people, that's a really cool story. I'm going to take all those frontline nurses and doctors on a turtle trip and have them come back and save a whole bunch more lives because they didn't burn out. Uh, so that's kind of where Blue Mind meets turtles meets our current uh, pandemic, really. And we were talking before we started recording. Before we started, we were talking about this yesterday, I think, and that after this pandemic wraps up, there's going to be years and years of recovery of our emotional health. For our kids, even for their kids, for everybody that's just been squeezed hard through this, and you know, so that's what Blue Mind's all about, really. I think,
Yeah.
in a nutshell.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you may have just come up with an idea for a special trip. Maybe we'll offer one for frontline folks at cost. See if we can help repay some of those amazing people that have helped us survive through this really challenging year.
Yeah, and I think a trip like that, just imagining it as a hypothetical, imagine a great trip to go and help put baby turtles into the ocean. And what if somebody on the trip was a therapist who actually knew how to speak to some of these, anxiety and stress and burnout? What a great combination. Like,
Yeah.
going and doing therapy on a turtle beach. Um, and in a smaller version of that is we've got nature centers, science museums, zoos, aquariums, wildlife parks, wildlife rehab places all over the world. What if we recognize the therapeutic benefit of all of those facilities? What if they all added a therapist to their staff so that their own staff was healthier, emotionally stronger, more resilient, but also all the people who come. I mean, I know people who go, they're lifelong members to aquariums and they go there for their mental health.
Mhm.
What if you could go to the aquarium and walk around with a therapist? That was part of the membership, where you could just go and look at jellyfish and talk to somebody about stuff. Um, I think that might save some of our aquariums from closing, or some of our nature and science centers from literally closing their doors because of what we've been through. Um, and the other I guess practical thing is, we were just talking about it a little earlier, is we are in the behavior change business, but most of our nonprofits don't know how to do behavior change. Right? We know turtle ecology, we may know tourism, but if you ask, do you have somebody on your staff who actually understands behavioral science? The answer 99% of the time is no. But you just told me you're in the behavior change business. Well, yeah, but you don't have anybody who understands behavior change. Well, no. So you're not in the behavior change business. So that's a place for improvement. And I would suggest to anybody who's going into this field or is in this field, educate yourself. Read Blue Mind, understand the science, and apply it. Add somebody to your staff who is a behavioral science expert, or maybe your board of directors. And if you're educating yourself right now, consider that smashing together of conservation science and the environment with behavioral science and behavior change as a double major, or as a subject of your thesis, because that's the future, as far as I can tell, is putting those two things together and building a bigger movement. You know, we can't just leave our movement the way it is. It needs to include doctors and nurses, and what if all of our first responders were also interested in protecting lakes, rivers, and oceans because they recognized the health benefits? That'd be cool. We'd more than welcome them onto the blue team. So
Yeah.
I think that's where we're headed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, great. This has been, a really fun conversation. Thank you so much for your time, and we look forward to seeing what's next with Blue Mind.
Yeah, let us know when that turtle therapy trip is on the books, and we'll make sure we get it packed with lots of people who need little turtle medicine.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you, Jay.
Thanks, Brad.